Hey guys, so in this video, I'm going to go ahead and do my review video on the latest MLP movie, Equestria Girls Friendship Games. And I do apologize for this very delayed review, and I also apologize for not doing reviews for the last two EQG movies, but anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so this movie first starts off with Sunset Shimmer dashing towards Camelot High, and she told Artie that she got her text, and apparently it had to do with Artie's guitar. It it had to do with a broken string, because she wanted to impress the CMCs or the Crusaders, because really I can't call them the Cutie Mark Crusaders because they're humans. But anyway, so yeah, I'm just going to call them the Crusaders, because that was their band name in the last movie. But anyway, so that's off topic. So Sunset gave Artie another string. So then Artie and her friends went into the school. But then Sunset decided to stay outside because she wanted to write to Twilight, which I thought was great because of how much Sunset looks up to Twilight now. But then after she wrote to Twilight, Sunset saw a girl with some purple skin come out in a light bluish hoodie and was walking around with some electronical device, and that's where Sunset actually got suspicious of her. And so she began to chase after her. But then that girl in the hoodie finally got away by getting onto a bus. And when she finally got on the bus, she took off her hoodie, and it was Twilight's EQG counterpart. And I thought EQG Twilight looked really cute with the hairstyle and glasses. And by that I mean the different hairstyle she had that Twilight's EQG counterpart had. But anyway, and then on the bus and then the bus she was on was taking her to Crystal Prep, which is another school, which is actually a rival school. But anyway, so when Twilight got to Crystal Prep, she went into the small little room with a bunch of her science equipment. Then after you see her go into her little room, then the intro plays, and I actually really liked the intro. It seemed very upbeat and energetic, which was also and indeed very catchy as well. All right. Then after the intro, you see Twilight working on another technological device. But meanwhile, back at Camelot High, Sunset was hanging out with the main six's EQG counterparts, excluding Princess Twilight. And for the main six in the EQG movies, I'm going to consider Sunset the main part of the main six, and told them what she saw. So then Sunset told them what she saw, and the other members of the main six. And like I said, I'm going to consider Sunset as a member of the main six in the movies. But anyway, so the other members of the main six gave their input as well about what Sunset saw outside of the school. Then they guessed that Twilight was from Crystal Prep, which they were right. And Artie mentions all the things that make them their rival school. So yeah, but so in the next scene, the whole Camelot High meets in the gym for CHS, and part of the things that made Crystal Prep their rival is because of how good they are at things, and how and the number of things that they beat Camelot High and like a bunch of other sports and stuff. But anyway, so yeah, in the next scene, Camelot High meets in the gym for the CHS pep rally. But the whole school doesn't get too excited about competing against Crystal Prep, since they always lose against them, unfortunately. But then Artie starts off with a song to get everyone pumped up and excited about the friendship games, which I thought was amazing. And it was also another really catchy song. It was also very upbeat as well. But then after the song, everyone finally gets pumped up about the games, and after the song, RD meets up with her pals backstage, and they seem pretty pumped up as well. However, AJ was wondering and asked how RD got her wings, and ears and wings. Because yes, a part of RD's excitement in the song, she did grow ears and wings. Because I guess the students at Camelot High are kind of used to some of the magical things that have gone on. Especially from way back from season 1 when Ponyville Twilight and her friends defeated Sunset while she was evil. But anyway, that's but yeah, so yeah, that's also my thoughts. But anyway, so then Luna appeared and told Sunset and her pals that they needed to keep the magic away from the games as possible. Alright, so yeah, so in the next scene, Sunset decides to go to the library and do some studying to try and find out why Rainbow Dash grew her wings and pony ears, but she still doesn't find out anything to help her out. So she decides to write to Twilight again about the whole situation in her little book that tries to reach out to her in Equestria. And so in the next scene, you see Twilight at Crystal Prep, and you get a chance to see more of the students there and what they look like, which they are in uniforms, since it's at a prep school. But then Twilight decides to head back into her little lab where she always goes to see important updates on whatever she's studying or whatever, and then she gets out her device that she uses to detect all the magic energy coming from Camelot High. Then eventually, you get to see Cadence's human counterpart in this movie, and so yeah, so she comes in, and so her and Twilight talk a bit about. They decide to talk for a bit, but yeah. So then after Twilight and Cadence talk about how Principal Cinch reacts to pets in school and this whole deal about Twilight's app to the school called Everton, where she wants to apply to. So after they talked a bit about that and some other things that they wanted to catch up on, then you finally get to hear another song come on, and I must say, it's another great one. Twilight basically sings about what her life is like at Crystal Prep and like how the other students feel about her and how she feels about like what she goes through there for herself. But then after the song, Twilight finally meets up with Miss Sidge, who is the principal of Crystal Prep and who I tend to see as the main antagonist for this movie. So once Twilight finally gets into her office, then you get to see Shining Armor's human counterpart as well, and so he closes the door behind Twilight as she continues to make her way towards Miss Cinch. And then you finally see Miss Cinch, which I think whoever did the voice for Miss Cinch was really good. But anyway, so Miss Cinch tells Twilight about Crystal Prep's reputation, stuff like that, and tells Twilight how important she is. And she also tries to convince Twilight to participate in the games as well. So Miss Cinch finally decides to make a deal with Twilight. It had to do with her app to Everton. She basically told Twilight she could approve her app to Everton if she did participate in the games, but decided to deny it if Twilight didn't participate. So in the next scene, Twilight heads back into her little small hideout laboratory or whatever in the school, and Twilight actually does decide to compete in the games. But she decides to bring her little magic detector thingy or whatever it's called with her. And she also decides to bring Spike along with her as well. And you finally get to see Twilight and the other Crystal Prep students getting on the bus to the Friendship Games, or to Camelot High. And then Twilight ends up having to sit in the back because a lot of people didn't want to sit next to her, unfortunately. But then once Twilight finally takes her seat in the back, she ends up sitting next to this girl named Lemons S. As far as the students at Crystal Prep, I'm gonna have to say she's my favorite, and because I think she's the cutest, and that's why. But But anyway, so once Twilight sat down next to her, she then put her headphones on Twilight to show her what she was listening to, and it pretty much almost, and it was really loud, but she put it on anyway. On Twilight's heads anyway. But anyway, so meanwhile, you see the EQG main six back at Camelot High just doing their thing. Then Rarity got a bunch of random outfits for the games, despite not knowing what they are. And I thought that was pretty funny, especially from the reaction she got from AJ. But anyway, so in the next scene, you see Crystal Prep students finally arriving at CHS, and then you finally get a chance to meet Sour Sweet, which is a very interesting name for her because she seems so soft and nice, but then at the same time she can be really hot-headed. So then Twilight sorry. So then Twilight finally heads towards Camelot High to look for some magic there. However, the people there start saying hi to her because they think it's the Twilight from Equestria. And yeah, so the Twilight from Equestria that they know was really nice and such an inspiration. But anyway, so you know the one thing, and then so then she doesn't respond to any of them because she doesn't know who they are, and she doesn't know that they know who she is. And then she finally runs into Flash Sentry. And you know one thing that I found disappointing about this movie is you didn't get a chance to see Twilight from Equestria run into Flash, because it seems Flash really does have a thing for Twilight. But anyway, so then Twilight's little magic detector thingy went off again. So she went off to go see where the magic was being hidden in the school, which was actually in one of the rooms that the main six were in. Because at one point, Rarity was growing ears and horns from showing off all her random outfits she made, despite not knowing if a lot of them will be needed. But then anyway, so then, like I said, Twilight's little magic device thingy went off, and it absorbed all that magic from Rarity. And after all her magic got absorbed, she ended up getting really exhausted. So then Twilight finally ends up going into the room that the main six are in. And they get really excited to see her because they think it's the Twilight from Equestria. But notice how different she looks, and that's where she told them she went to Crystal Prep. And then Principal Sin came by to get her because I guess she needed to talk to her and tell her that she needs to focus. So later on, Sunset decided to go over to the statue where the portal to Equestria was located, but still didn't hear from Twilight yet. So she decided to actually go near it. However, Twilight's little magic detector thingy went off again and stole the magic from it, therefore making the portal go away. So in the next scene, everyone meets up into the gym to welcome Crystal Prep, and once Sunset and her gang come in as well, Sunset goes up to Twilight and asks her what she's been up to, and that's where the main six come across more Crystal Prep students as well. And then Pinky got a chance to meet Crystal Prep Twilight. And that's also where Pinky and Twilight decided to get a party going. However, at one point, and I really did like this scene, because it just seemed things were cool between them. However, Pinky started to grow ears, so again, Twilight's magic detector device absorbed all of Pinky's magic, and that's where Miss Singe appears and caused the party to stop, unfortunately, for some announcements she had to make. I like how cheery this scene. Again, I loved how cheery this scene was. Seeing both Camelot High and Crystal Prep partying together. But anyway, so in the next scene, Vice Principal Luna announces over the intercom at CHS, like, where the students are back to doing their original thing, that it's the first day of the Friendship Games. That's also where Cadence announced what the first event was, which involved academics, and that is where another great song came on. Basically involved all the academic activities that the students were competing in. So the challenges that they participated in during the song that involved baking, building a birdhouse, spelling, and one that involved science or something, which obviously Twilight had that one in the bag. And which she did end up winning that challenge at the end of the song. And this song basically talked about like Care-a-Lot's heist determination to defeat Crystal Prep in the games. And yeah, that was kind of the whole main message of that song, and it was a great one. And I loved how catchy it was. I know I've probably said that for a lot of the other songs in this movie, in this review video. And yeah, so overall, I thought that was a really good song for competition. But anyway, so after the event, after the event, Twilight continues her search for more of the magic that lies around Care-a-Lot High. And that's also where she comes across Fluttershy. And so they talked for a bit, and that's where Fluttershy decided to show Twilight all her pets. Even though Twilight was kind of an opponent to Care-a-Lot, Fluttershy was still being kind to her because her element is kindness. But again, that's where Twilight's device started to go off and suck all the magic from Fluttershy too. However, for some reason, that's where Spike finally got a chance to talk. And so Twilight started to become overwhelmed with all the magic she's coming across at CHS. And so it seems to me that 5 of the main 6 ponies pony up when they use their element of harmony on someone or do something they're really good at. And that's when Sunset later on wondered if Twilight's magic device thingy made the portal go away. And that was like at one point when Sunset was walking through the halls with their bells. But anyway, so later on they finally find this huge track where the events are going to be held outside the school. And then you see Miss Cinch assigning her students who to compete with. So Twilight ends up having to play the games with Sour Sweet. And so in the next scene, you finally see the people in the stands of where the game's going to be. And that's where Cadence announced what each event of the competitors will be competing in. Alright, and so the first event finally begins with archery, which started off with AJ and Fluttershy for Care-a-Lot High, and Twilight and Sour Sweet for Crystal Prep. You see, yeah, so the first event, that's the first event, and Care-a-Lot started off with an early lead because Twilight was having some trouble with the archery event. However, at one point, AJ actually decided to help Twilight, and that's where Twilight finally hit a bullseye in the archery event. However, AJ then ponied up, which again caused Twilight's magic device thingy to go off, and therefore absorbing all of AJ's magic energy as well. Then for some reason, after she absorbed all of AJ's magic, she accidentally dropped her little magic device thingy somehow, and that's where the magic from Twilight's device started to go haywire. Yeah, I know. Yep, yep. This I have been saying a lot since for a review on a movie. but but anyway, so Pinky and Rarity finally managed to finish their skating race because after the archery event, that's where that's where the roller skating event starts. All right, and then the motocross event began. And then some vine-like monster thingy started to appear, which kind of put some of the motocross players in danger, which were already Sunset, Indigo Zap, and Sugarcoat from Crystal Prep. So Artie ended up having to save Sunset from the vine-like monster thingy from attacking her, and so then that's where she started to grow wings and pony ears again, and actually decided to fly instead of riding her bike. Kind of seems typical for Rainbow Dash. And that actually gave her the chance to save the other competitors on the motorbikes as well, despite being their opponents. And then Sunset finally crosses the finish line first. However, despite Sunset's victory, Cadence told everyone to go to the gym after what happened during the motocross event. And then after everyone went into the gym, Twilight's device thingy went off again and took Artie's magic as well. And that's where Sunset totally lost it with Twilight and finally told her off about what she's done. Even and even though Sunset did have a point, I still felt bad for Twilight. And that also left a big argument between Principal Celestia and Miss Cinch, like if they should stop the games or if Canterlot should forfeit and some stuff like that. But anyway, so then Sunset decided to talk to Celestia about it as well, and also apologized because in a way Sunset was kind of responsible for it, and she couldn't find a way to control the magic around Canterlot High. But yeah, so then anyway, later on, everyone finally met back outside, and that's where Cadence finally announced what the final event was going to be, which was to find their school team's flag and finish first in the event since it's it's a tie. And however, after Cadence announced what the final event was going to be, Sunset told her friends about how bad she felt about the way she talked to Twilight. And so that's where the Crystal Prep players also had their big discussion before the final event as well. And that's where Miss Cinch finally told Twilight about what her device can do. And then another musical number comes on, which is actually my favorite villain song. It also involved the other Crystal Prep students to sing along in it as well. And they were basically forcing Twilight to unleash all of that magic she stored in her device. But I thought Miss Cinch had a great singing voice. And same with the other students. Alright. And so, yep, that's what's been going on. Alright, hang on. And see, sorry. Sometimes I guess I should just need a little break. Chance to catch my breath. Since I've been talking a lot. But anyway, so they were basically forcing Twilight to unleash the magic that she stored in her device. But I thought, like I said, Miss Cinch had a great singing voice, and same with the other students. Yeah. And I thought this song was pretty catchy too. And so after the song finally ended, she finally did unleash all that magic from her device, and then she finally became evil. Like, she gained a lot of magic power. And so this scene kind of reminded me of the first. movie where Sunset got a hold of Twilight's crown and became powerful. So after Twilight became evil, she then started to open up different portals to different areas in Equestria, like Ponyville, the town square of Ponyville, Manhattan, Cloudsdale, Sweet Apple Acres, the spa in Ponyville, and a bunch of other places. But I thought the scene was pretty cool, though. And the reason why Twilight was opening these different portals to Equestria, or to these different areas in Equestria, is to get its magic. But that involved causing some damage and putting others' lives on the line. Twilight even opened up a big portal on the ground, in which some of the students almost fell into that. But other students who didn't almost fell decided to save the ones who did almost fall into it. And that even included some of the Crystal Prep students as well. And I thought that was pretty cool, despite how cocky they were to CHS. Anyway, after some of the students were saved, Sunset managed to get a hold of Twilight's device and tried to talk her out of her evil ways. And then Sunset told Twilight that what true magic comes from, which is honesty, loyalty, laughter, generosity, and kindness. For some reason, that gave Sunset a lot of magic to try and take down Twilight. And I thought Sunset's transformation looked really cool. Yeah, I know. I do like to mess with my hair a lot in these review videos. Sorry about that, folks, but yes, I do like to do that. but anyway, so yeah. So then after Sunset finally transforms, that's where Sunset closes the different portals to different places in Equestria, and then we get a chance to see a little bit of Dragon Ball Z action. However, during the fight between Sunset and Twilight, Spike started to give Twilight the sad doggy look, which completely threw Twilight off guard. So after Twilight got caught off guard, Sunset offered Twilight a hand, and offering her to show her another way, like the Twilight Sparkle from Equestria did, leading her to the path of friendship. So anyway, yeah, I know, it's almost been 30 minutes. But anyway, so that's where Twilight and Sunset return to their normal form, and after they return to their normal form, Twilight finally apologized for what she did. That's where Sunset convinced Twilight that she'll be forgiven by others, like how Sunset was. Then Miss Singe started to complain to Principal Celestia about the games and the magic they were using, and even demanded them forfeiting the games. However, that's where Celestia addressed that saving the world is what benefits them all. And that's also where Sugarcoat and Sour Sweet blamed Miss Singe for forcing Twilight to unleash the magic and becoming evil, especially in song format. And I'm pretty sure the Crystal Prep and Camelot students blamed her as well. But anyway, so Miss Singe decided to even run it by the school board. But Cadence, Luna, and Celestia really didn't care. They basically thought it would be interesting for the school board to hear about the other magical things that happened to go down at CHS during the friendship games. And the CHS and Prep students stood against Miss Singe as well, which led Miss Singe to resting her case. And and ceasing her arguing between her and Celestia and the other students, the whole gang. But anyway, so then Celestia actually decided to declare both CHS and Crystal Prep both winners for what they overcame. Alright, so yeah, so in the next scene that took place after the games concluded, Twilight decided to sit outside of Canberra CHS for a bit. And that's where, yeah, you guys can tell I'm already getting tired. Yeah, it's been quite a while, or haven't really done vlogs reviews this long. But anyway, so that's where Cadence decided to meet up with her and talk with her for a bit. And at one point during their conversation with each other, Twilight decided to transfer over to CHS, which seems a little more convenient, which seems more accurate to me for her to go there. And it definitely fits her more, at least her character. But anyway, meanwhile, the main six still wait patiently for Twilight from Equestria to return, and that's where Sunset finally figured out when the other main five ponies show up. It's when they show the truest parts of themselves. And then Twilight and Principal Celestia notify the main six that Twilight is transferring over to CHS. And the main six were very happy with her decision to move over to CHS. And that's where you see another nice group warm hug scene, which I thought was very heartwarming, because of after all that Twilight went through during this movie. I just thought it was really nice how warmly they welcomed her to CHS. However, there is one last scene where the Twilight from Equestria finally makes it back to CHS and finally encounters her counterpart, who is now at CHS. So yeah, so pretty much that's what happened in that last scene. But anyway, so yeah, this is my review on the Friendship Games. And again, I apologize for not getting this up sooner. But I'll go ahead and give some final commentary on it. I actually really liked this movie, alright? Alright, and I personally thought Rainbow Rocks was better. But I still like this one a lot. And the songs it had to offer as well. I still thought the ones in this, and again, I also thought the second ones in the songs in the second one were better, but I still like the ones in this one. However, I really miss the Dazzlings though, especially Sonata. I loved Sonata. She was my favorite of them all, or of the two. So yeah, but anyway, this is my review on the Friendship Games. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time, alright? Alright, thanks guys. Alright, bye.